Hey, y'all, I'm Melissa Guerra. I am the Kitchen Wrangler, and thank you so much for joining me on my podcast this week. I apologize. I know I am posting a day late, but we had kind of a doggy emergency here at the ranch. So I was involved in a dog rescue yesterday, and it just threw my week off. But I'm back, and I was thinking about y'all the whole time because I knew that I wanted to share all of the wonderful stuff that I learned this week for my podcast. And this week, we are doing a deep dive into beans and why. Why are we looking at beans? Well, I'm here on the border of Texas. We eat frijoles almost every day. Anytime we go to a restaurant, there they are. They're very plentiful in this area, and they are the basis of our cuisine. So I was at the supermarket, and I saw this bread, and it was called Ezekiel bread. And on the package, it said Ezekiel 4:9, which is chapter and verse in the Old Testament. So I thought, wow, I'm going to go check that out. Because, in this journey of food history that I've been on for the last 30 years, trying to define Tex-Mex cuisine, I actually refer to the Bible quite a bit when I am looking for old world definitions of foodways. And so I went to Ezekiel 4:9, and this is what I read. And I apologize. My paper, the battery never wears out on my little paper notes. Hence, that's why I have paper. So here's what Ezekiel 4:9 says. It says, take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself. Well, as a woman of Tex-Mex land, let me tell you, it is very interesting to think that Jesus ate frijoles just as much as I do. That's like, what a thought. Now, that is the question today. Did Jesus eat frijoles? Well, I already know the answer, but I want to take you down the path of how I got to that answer. And it's kind of long. Your head's going to start to hurt because you're going to feel your head morphing from a skull into an egg. You're going to turn into an egghead, just like me. So I'm going to apologize. But then again, I think it's fun. I think it's a lot of fun to learn this stuff. And I do. One of the reasons that I really do love food history is because it gives me a greater appreciation for the plate that's served to me or that I serve to other people. You know the full story of that ingredient while you're cooking it, while you're serving it, while you're enjoying it. It's just a deeper gratitude. And that is why I just love food history. I love cooking, don't get me wrong. I really love cooking. I love sharing food with folks. But I also really love the food history because it tells me the entire story of this ingredient that I am fixing to really enjoy. So anyway, that's why it gives me so much pleasure to share these little nuggets of food history with you. So I'm really, really glad you're here. So how do I get to the answer of whether Jesus ate frijoles or not? Well, I have to look at this Bible verse, and they are using the word beans, which you would think would mean frijoles. But there's something about words that can either be general or specific. And when we use general words, a general idea is no idea at all. You have to get very specific to know if Jesus did actually eat the same frijoles that I enjoy here along the border. So as an example of looking at specific words and general words, I'm going to tell you, I saw a bird. It was, let's see if I can do this. It was this bird. Maybe that's the bird I saw. Or maybe I saw this bird. That bird's got a lot of junk in its trunk. It's real different than the first bird that we looked at. Or maybe I saw this bird. These are all birds. But what bird am I referring to? Well, you really don't know. Or what if I say, I saw an automobile? Maybe I saw this automobile. Or maybe I saw this automobile. Or maybe I saw this automobile. So they're all automobiles. They're all vehicles that get you from one place to another, but they're not all the same. And we've gotten more and more specific. So like this is a chicken, you know that, but look at that scientific name. It is Gallus domesticus. That is a domestic chicken. So that's much more specific than just saying bird. This is an emu, which is, what does that say? Dromalus nova hollandiae. I hear those things are mean. I'm steering clear of those things. And then this little guy with the hat is a rockhopper penguin. Different than other penguins. Not an emperor penguin. We don't want to get him confused because this is a rockhopper penguin. It's a very specific penguin. And by knowing the scientific name, which I am not even going to attempt because the voices in my head understand that scientific name, but the voice that comes out of my mouth can't work it. Anyway, y'all know what I mean. You can read it. That is a very specific penguin. And so that very specific penguin is from a very specific place. And that scientific name gives us all the provenance of that penguin that we need to know. And this is a 1977 Reliant. Look, it only has 3 wheels. What the heck? Obviously, it's European. And I don't know if the Reliants were built in France or I think this one says Netherlands on it. So I think that's what the NL on the license plate says. But that is a European car. This is a 2022 McLaren. So very different than that 3-wheeled European automobile that we're looking at, because that these two do not achieve the same speed. It is a different deal. And then this is Elvis's 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special. So I don't know when they started putting VINs in vehicles. Some of you auto folks, you auto experts, put it in the comments below. But I'm wondering if this 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood had a VIN, then it would be very specific as to the provenance of this vehicle. So just like plants, just like vehicles and birds, we need to be really specific about the plants and other ingredients so that we know where they came from. There was not a moment in time where all plants existed at all places. I mean, I've been to England. They do not have cactus the way that we have it here in Texas. Not every place has every same plant. It's all different. And so if you know the scientific name, then you can trace if a plant came from a specific area. So this is Fasciola vulgaris. This is and when I say vulgaris, that does not mean that it's vulgar, that it's cruddy, or it's nasty, anything like that. It just means that it's common. So this is a common bean. I don't know what kind of common bean this is. It might be a pinto bean. I don't think it's a black bean, but from these common beans, different varieties were developed. And actually, where I live in the Rio Grande Valley, right on the border of Texas, there is an archaeological discovery in Ocampo, which is about an hour's drive from here down into Mexico, where they found some of the oldest remnants of frijoles, which is super exciting because beans are just such an important foodstuff around the world anymore. But this is a common bean. And so I'm assuming that when y'all hear Ezekiel 4:9, you are thinking this is what Ezekiel was talking about. But it's not quite right, because this plant is of the Americas. It is not of the old biblical world where Ezekiel lived. This is of the Americas. So Ezekiel would have never seen Fasciola vulgaris. Would have never seen it because it was of the Americas. Now, what would Ezekiel have seen? Ezekiel would have seen bitter vetch, which is actually more of a fodder type of bean, type of a legume. Oh, and let me clarify. I don't care what the poetry says that we all learned in grade school. Beans are not a fruit. They are not a fruit. They are a legume. And a legume is a seed that grows inside a pod. Now, the pod is not the legume, but the seed inside the pod is the legume. And legumes can exist around the world. Specific legumes come from specific parts of the world, but just like you can have succulents from all over the world that are specific to certain areas, you can have legumes that exist all over the world. They don't have to be related. Don't have to be related, but it's just the way that a plant grows and reproduces that determines whether it's a legume. So this bitter vetch, it is a legume. And like I said, it's more of a fodder thing. Then this is a chickpea. Again, another legume. And there they are growing on their plant. These are peas. And there's Pisum sativum. The sativum part just means that this is a cultivated pea. It's not a wild pea, but those were in Ezekiel and Jesus's part of the world. Wheat, Ezekiel referred to wheat, so there's wheat. This was in Jesus and Ezekiel's part of the world. Barley was part of Jesus and Ezekiel's part of the world. So was Triticum spelta. This is spelt, which is a type of wheat. And lentils, which is a pulse, along with most other legumes. It's a pulse. And one of the little bits of trivia that I learned is that lentils get their name. You can see the scientific name, lens culinaris. It's because they're lens shaped. They're kind of convex. Isn't that cool? That is the coolest. So everything that I just showed you is from the old world, with the exception of Phaseola vulgaris. Now, in our American brains, unless you're Americans, but this is how Americans think. In our American brains, we're going back to Phaseola vulgaris. But whoever translated Ezekiel's words used the word bean and didn't really take into account what Americans are thinking in terms of what we think of as a bean. He was just thinking of possibly a legume, because like I said, legumes, like succulents, exist around the world. So the same thing happens to the word corn. Corn is of the Americas, but it didn't exist in Jesus's neighborhood. It did not exist in Ezekiel's neighborhood. They had other stuff that they ate, but corn was very specific to the Americas. So when you hear about corn in the Bible, and let me tell you, there are lots of references to corn in the Bible. They're not really speaking about zea maize, which is corn, because that is of the Americas. It was just not near, it didn't grow near Ezekiel or Jesus. That's just a fact. It didn't happen until colonization happened, and then we had the Columbian exchange, where old world plants made it to the new world and new world plants made it to the old world. And that wasn't until, we all know that happened. It was probably invented at the same time that little poem about beans was invented, 1492. That, our grade school poetry comes to the rescue. But around 1492 or earlier, if you want to think about the Vikings, then that's when we had this exchange of old world and new world plants. So that was way, way, way after Ezekiel, way after Jesus, just way down the line. So there was no Phaseola vulgaris that they were referring to in Ezekiel. Oh, and this is millet. Sorry, I did not get to my last slide, but this is a very important food grain out of Africa. Still very important there. So Ezekiel could have, well, he did refer to millet, right? He said to put it in a jar and make bread out of it. The jar part is very interesting too, because he was sprouting the grains, super nutritious. He really knew what was going on. It's those little nuggets that you can pick up in the Bible, just very small. Like sprouted grains are the rage right now with nutritionists, but they were doing it before. They were sprouting grains and legumes before Jesus was born. Amazing. So this little map that I wanted to show you, though, shows you the little red dot that's in the middle of the map. That is the basic area where all of those plants all of those grains and legumes and pulses, everything that I just showed you, that is their basic stomping ground. Right around the Fertile Crescent, right around Egypt, right around present-day Israel. that is where those plants proliferated. And then if we go over to the oval that's right underneath the United States, that is where Phaseola vulgaris, that was their stomping ground. So these plants, they had similarities, but the specific Phaseola vulgaris, which is my pinto beans, my frijoles, my refritos, what I enjoy here along the border every day, the oval indicates the homeland of my bean, of my frijol. It's not that dot that's in the center. There's just too much geography between them. They just never came together. So the question of, did Jesus eat frijoles? No. Did he eat legumes? Yes. So, but not my frijoles, not my pinto beans. He had a whole bunch of other different beans and different legumes and grains and pulses that he enjoyed, but definitely not my frijoles. And so that is it. That is all I've got for you. I really enjoyed this study on beans, and there's more and more and more that I want to talk to you about. But we're going to leave that for next time. Make sure you subscribe to my podcast channel. Right now, I only have 17 followers. I love each and every one of you. I'm sending you a little thank you note from my heart to your heart. Thank you for subscribing to my Egghead podcast. But make sure that you also subscribe to my cooking channel, because I'm showing you how I cook. And I don't know, cooking. People seem to like the cooking more than the egghead part, but I like both. So I do both. So anyway, I'm Melissa Guerra. Make sure you subscribe to both of my YouTube channels, and you can find me online at kitchenwrangler.com, or follow me on social media, because that is where I spend most of my days. I'm Melissa Guerra. I'm the Kitchen Wrangler, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here at the ranch again soon. Bye now.